I feel like if you go into it with, I have to have a closing from this in the first 60 days, you're just going into it with the wrong mindset.
Hello and welcome to episode 236 of the Smart Agents Podcast. As always, my name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. On today's episode, we are joined by Naples, Florida-based agent Kevin Tremmel. After getting his real estate license straight out of college in 2017, he got his start in the industry in new construction. Then at the beginning of 2024, Kevin decided it was time to go out on his own and launch his solo career. Throughout our conversation, Kevin discusses the challenges he faced as a younger agent in a market dominated by older clients, his experience in new construction sales, and the importance of understanding buyer needs. We also dive into the transition to being a solo agent, the learning curve involved in running a business, and how he turned to podcasting for networking and lead generation. But before we get on with the day's featured interview, if you or someone else on your team has an incredible story of real estate success or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new guests to inspire our listeners. And lastly, if you enjoy this conversation and want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. We stream on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. All right, let's get on with our conversation with Kevin Tremmel. I really enjoyed talking to him, and if you would like to connect with him or listen to his podcast, 239 Real Estate Roundtable, check out the episode description for links. All right, well, really the way I like to start everything out is if you could just introduce yourself to us a little bit. Tell us who you are and where you are joining us from.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Kevin Tremmel. I am a local real estate agent in Southwest Florida, so pretty much service all of Lee and Collier County. I'm originally from Munich, Germany. And then, so sorry about the minor accent in case some of you hear it, may hear it. And yeah, moved here in 2017 after college to Naples, Florida, and was looking for, I studied finance and chemistry in college, and the plan was to get my real estate license until I get a real job, right? So then, get the license, maybe do a couple deals while I look for a real job, and then move on to Miami or New York or LA or something like that. That was the original plan, but as life has it, I committed fully to real estate and have been doing real estate full time pretty much since 2018, got licensed in 2017. And then, as there's always that little transition period where, you're transitioning from, whatever your job is to 100% commission. So, there's that ramp up phase. But yeah, been doing pretty much full time real estate since 2018. In the beginning, not going to lie, it's hard. I mean, real estate is a tough business, as we know. I had a really hard time kind of finding getting some momentum. I don't know how much the audience knows about Naples, Florida, but the average age in Naples, I think the median age is like, high 50s.
Right.
And, I was 24, 23. And of course, what gets preached in real estate is, sphere of influence, right? Like that's how you get started. That's how you start the deals. But I mean, I was fresh off the plane, right? I didn't have anybody. And on top of that, just, kind of relating to these like little older folks and very successful folks, mostly in Naples. So it was tough. So I actually went into new construction. And that's where I spent most of my time, and did new construction for a couple of years for big national builders, was a sales manager. So managed like one of those kind of large HOA communities. We did about, $50 million in sales volume per year. So it was a pretty high volume operation, managed some pretty successful, high performing sales reps. And anybody that knows something about high performing sales reps is they are definitely a breed of their own. So, and then did that for a couple of years, and just my priorities and goals kind of shifted. I guess, what I wanted out of life and things like that. Wanted to kind of do my own thing, be my own boss, all the benefits that I guess come with that, and started my own gig as a solo agent last year. So January of 2024. So I just had my 1 year anniversary. And yeah, it's been awesome. Pretty successful year for it being my first year, and really spent kind of last year to learn everything that I didn't know about general, which isn't so much like real estate. It's more about like how do you run a business, right? So,
Right.
it's get the system set up, and like everything when you do it for the first time just takes so long. So that's really what the goal was for last year, and then this year is kind of scaling and growing and building on top of that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's really interesting that, out of college, you thought I'm going to get my real estate license until I get my real job. What was it about real estate that caught your eye to be, what you had originally thought was going to be that kind of, stepping stone?
Yeah, transition into a real gig or a real
Yeah.
job, so to speak. Yeah, two things. I mean, obviously, money is probably what most people draws into real estate at first. I mean, in sales, like generally the higher ticket items you sell, the more commission you make per deal, right? So like, I just felt like a house is obviously, next to like a jet or a yacht or selling big software packages. I mean, it's something I felt like is not going to go away soon. It's not a trend. Like people want to live in their houses. People, life happens, job transitions, upgrading, downgrading, downsizing, upsizing, that kind of stuff. I just felt like it was a high ticket sales item without like being really specialized, right, into like I said, like a yacht sale or like a jet broker or something like that. So, money definitely. And then my dad was in real estate, so he, and that helps. I mean, I feel like it's pretty common that you see families or children oftentimes follow into their parents' footsteps. So it wasn't necessarily planned, but obviously it was a good stepping point or starting point after college, right? My dad wasn't so much an agent or a broker, but I mean, he basically did like vacation rentals in Southwest Florida before VRBO and Airbnb was a thing. Like, has been doing that for a while. So I grew up around real estate, grew up around Southwest Florida real estate. It just seemed like a natural progression, I guess, if that makes sense.
Right.
But
Well, and then, getting into the new construction, I think that having that experience really helps you understand like the sales process
yeah,
side of things that I think, you know, um, that's one of those areas in real estate, as a new agent that does take a little bit of time and learning. And so having, I feel like that helps accelerate that process a bit, getting into the new construction sales.
yeah, 100%. I mean, as you know, the actual real estate course and the state issued course, I mean, it teaches you very little about lead gen, conversion. How do you like it? Just doesn't. It's not a sales course, right? So, like, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I have friends, and I've always had friends like on the general side, right? And I mean, they very successful agents, and they've always said like, I mean, you as in me, like, how to sell. Like, I just know kind of real estate, right? But like you said, I mean, once you work for a builder and like they have a good sales process, you actually learn how to sell. And I mean, I feel like I could sell really anything, right? Like, I mean, the human psychology doesn't really change. It's just, I would have to learn a new product. But as far as like a sales process goes, that really doesn't change, right? I mean, if there's certain elements there, like, doesn't really matter what you sell. So yeah, I'm super grateful for that, and I wouldn't have changed or done it any other way, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I have to imagine having that, knowing the product, the house, whatever models it is, having a set amount, or certain models that you're selling really helps you focus on that psychology and coming and overcoming, the human objections rather than, having to spend so much time learning the different homes, the different
Yeah.
areas. You can really hone in and focus on the person.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I kind of notice that now when I work with buyers now. I mean, it'll take us. I mean, I know agents, and I'm sure you do too, where it's like or you ask somebody that you meet and you're like, yeah, we're buying a house right now. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, how long have you been looking with your agent? And they're like, yeah, I mean, I think like 3 to 4 months, we've probably seen about 50 homes. Right. And like in my head, like, it's just, what the hell, right? Like, I mean, when I work with buyers, the last couple of buyers that I worked with, I mean, we probably found the right home after 2 to 3 tours, like max. And I don't, some people listening might be like, well, like you probably pushed them in, or like, you probably press. No, it's not that. I just know like what questions to ask so we get to the goal faster, right? It's not like I'm pushing them, or like, I want them to be happy. Obviously, as a general real estate agent, you have more of a fiduciary responsibility than versus if you're working for a builder. It's just like, I just asked a ton of questions up front, and probably my initial list of homes that I sent to them is probably more refined than most agents sent to them. And then you already have like the cone very, very narrow. And then you just got to ask the right questions after, seeing the first 5 houses. And I mean, really dig deep, right? And that experience with the builder is just going to help me work with buyers like pretty efficiently based on what I've heard and seen from other agents,
Right. So when you are meeting with a buyer client for the first time, and it's that initial meeting, what are some of those questions that you're asking to really hone in on, and like you said, kind of narrow that focus down a bit?
Yeah, for sure. So we always had a little acronym, and there's many different acronyms and rapport building scripts and all that. But I mean, what we always used was POAC, right? So present, like what is their present situation, right? Where do they live now? How big is the home? Is it, an apartment? Is it a single family home? Is it a duplex? What do they like about it? What do they not like about it? How many kids do they have? Like, where do they work, right? Everything basically like present situation, right? And then really kind of dwell on like their buying motive, essentially. Like why did they pick up the phone and call you, right? Like most people don't just call you on a Saturday at 1 o'clock because they're bored. Like there's something there that happened that is kind of wanting them to make a move, right? And you got to find out what that is, right? I mean, it can be anything from we found out we're pregnant to we had a shooting in our apartment. I mean, these are things I've heard, right? I'm not making this stuff up, right? So POAC, or present situation. And then they always really for outcome, hey, what does your dream home look like? What would be important to you in a home? And some people like big yard space. Some people don't like big yard space because of the maintenance, right? And I think it's really important with that to like not assume, right? I mean, just because you might like big yard space doesn't mean that other people like big yard space. I mean, if you have two 65-year-old retired people, unless they like gardening, like they might want traveling and they don't want to have an acre of land, right? So outcome, right? I mean, what type of home, when, that kind of stuff, where, the basics there. And then the A in POAC is authority, which this one is very, very commonly missed. I've found, especially with the young people, first-time home buyers, right? You really want to dig down on who are the decision makers. It's less of a thing with, a 45-year-old couple with 2 kids. It might be less of a thing, but you never know. But is mom and dad going to be part of this? Is Uncle Joe going to be part of this? Like, is mom and dad contributing with the down payment, and are they going to have to sign off on any house? Or like you want to get those people involved early. That way, you're not like there on a Sunday at 4 p.m. and you just found the dream house. And then it's like, whoa, but like, we got to show it to our parents. Right. And then it's Tuesday and the house sells and, stuff like that. Like, you just want to get those people involved early. You probably wouldn't hurt to call all the decision makers, just introduce yourself. So, they kind of know that their children or whoever the decision maker is are in good hands. Right. Like, so that's really a really commonly misstep, especially, like I said, with first-time home buyers, but it can also be with, people that are just really close to their parents or whatever it may be. And then the C in the POAC, POAC, is capital, Are you paying cash? Or are you financing? How much money do you want to put down? And here, like a common mistake I see made is like people get so hung up on the price of the home, right? Like it's constantly like, oh, we want to stay under 400. We want to stay under 450. We want to stay under XYZ. But a lot of people don't realize, I mean, a $400,000 home in St. Augustine is going to cost very different on a monthly basis than a $400,000 home on the beach in Naples, if you could get a $400,000 home on the beach in Naples, right? But I mean, we're talking, as you know, taxes, we're talking homeowners insurance, we're talking flood insurance, all those things. So I don't really like to ask people like what's like their purchase price, because that doesn't really mean anything. Like what most people care about is the monthly payment, right? So how much, like, let's not talk like price, because $500,000, you're just saying that because like you saw on Zillow, right? Like that doesn't mean anything to most buyers unless you've bought 10 homes and you kind of know what that translates into. But what are you looking to be around on a monthly basis with principal, interest, tax, and insurance included, right? And then, they tell you things like that. Have you been pre-approved? Like, all those kind of things. So I know that was really long, but I hope that answered your questions. Those are kind of some of the questions I would ask to
absolutely
get a good feeling.
Yeah. And I definitely think like the whole, asking more about what can you afford on a monthly basis. Yeah. I mean, that's so much more beneficial and actually like really does, it helps get the buyer, especially first time home buyers. Because I even know the first time, my wife and I bought our first home, that purchase price number, that's so big that, I mean, it does, it like kind of paralyzes you.
Yeah.
But then when things were broken down to the monthly payment, but we're like, okay, now we can kind of expand our search a little bit, or now we understand what this means.
Yeah.
For our daily lives.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really good way to break things down and explain things to your buyers. But then I also really like knowing what their motivations for moving. Is it somebody that, what, we feel like we're starting to outgrow this home, or is it, hey, we are relocated and we have to move fast, and now you are able to tailor your approach to finding their home?
Yeah, 100%. And timing is obviously a big issue. Obviously when I was working in new construction, the goal was always as quick as possible when you're representing the builder and, you have quotas to meet, obviously. But I've noticed in general, it's, you could have a buyer that, hey, I'm getting transferred in 4 months, right? And that's a little bit of a different like conversation than our lease is up in 21 days.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Before we dive into our next topic, I have a question. Agents, are you ready to build instant trust with the sellers and buyers you meet? Well, with today's sponsor, Authorify, you can become a published author and gain instant credibility with potential clients. You'll easily win listings, and buyers will want you to represent them as their agent. Imagine handing somebody your book instead of a business card and watching them realize that you're the real deal and want to list with you. Even better, you can try this out for free because Authorify is giving you a free sample book so you can see exactly how it works. Simply go to authorify.com/sample to claim your free sample book now. Tell me about, moving on from the new home construction and starting your own thing. And like you said, it, there's been a ramp up period the last year, but tell me how everything's going with that.
Yeah, I mean, overall, really, really good. Most of my transactions last year, so 2024, my first year, were referrals, friends, family, sphere of influence, previous customers, right? Like people that I might have sold a home to 5 years ago, and when I was working for builders, and now they're getting ready to sell. So it was a lot of that. And this year I kind of want to build on that, right? With some extra marketing that I'm doing and things like that. So I think overall it's going really well. I mean, one of the challenges is that that I'm realizing is obviously when you do your own thing in general real estate, no one's really there to support you. When you work for a builder, I mean, when I was a manager, you have your sales team, that do the sales. Obviously, that's kind of priority because you're a sales manager, and without sales, there's really nothing. So, but then you have like your office manager that does a lot like what like an assistant would do in general real estate. Depending on how big the builder is. I mean, I work for big builders, so they have like millions of dollars in marketing budget and a professional marketing team with graduates that studied marketing in college, and like everything's done for you and they know what they're doing, and you just got to take the leads and convert, right? So what I'm getting at is like it was definitely a challenge last year to learn everything that is not sales related, right? You know, paperwork, being efficient with that, marketing, CRMs, like data entry, I found is like a big thing. Stay on top of your CRM, your follow-ups, your drip campaigns, things like that. So, those are kind of the challenges. But I mean, I think overall it's gone really well, better than expected for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You've talked about wanting to and doing some more marketing, and I have to ask you. You have a podcast, and I want to talk to you about that and how that has related to your marketing. But first, tell us a little bit about the podcast and launching that.
Yeah, so we launched, I want to say May of 2024. So 10 months ago or 9 months ago. A couple different reasons why I wanted to start this. Number one, obviously the obvious one is lead generation, right? If you can get to a point where you can, I don't know, get an extra one closing a quarter from this podcast, it's pays for itself, obviously, right. and then some, and it's worth the time and investment. So that's obviously the one thing, the elephant in the room, so to speak. But also, when I was new to general real estate, I didn't know like other agents. I didn't know, other lenders kind of outside of the preferred lender we had at the builders. So the goal was really, in the beginning, we interviewed mostly other agents, local successful agents, Lee and Collier counties, some agents also on the east coast of Florida, like Miami and things like that. But and the goal with that was really to network a little bit, honestly, man. I mean, it's a totally different conversation when you call somebody on a listing, like when you call a listing agent and, it's like, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about this? Right. Versus like, hey, John, remember me? Like we did a podcast episode 8 months ago. Like, how you been? Right. I mean, those are very different conversations. Right. Or when you send over an offer, right? I mean, I don't know where, how it is where you're at, but down here, we're definitely entering a buyer's market, or we are in the middle of a buyer's market, just call it what it is. Yeah. So the days of like really sticking out with an offer are kind of going away a little bit, but it still helps when you send over an offer and, you've had some kind of connection with the listing agent, right, on the other side. So networking, and now, over the last couple of weeks, months, we've also branched out to some more general real estate things. So appraisers, home inspectors, had a great lady on last week. She has like a kind of very hands-off, intuitive social media marketing company geared towards real estate agents like nationwide. So, short-term rentals, property management. So we're kind of branching out. So that was kind of the second reason, networking. And then third, it was just a little passion project of mine. One of my goals or dreams or aspirations, whatever you want to call it, was just kind of have like a voice in the real estate industry because, one thing I've noticed, and I'm sure it's different for other states in the United States, but, Florida, as being in St. Augustine, has pretty relaxed real estate licensing laws. And with that being said, everybody and their uncle and cousin have a real estate license in Florida, as you know. So it was, and with that, I've just noticed there's a lot of like, part-time agents or agents that just don't really know. And I feel like it's a shame because, I mean, I don't know, the quality of agents generally in Florida it's just not what I would want if I were to buy or sell a home. If, let's say, I
Yeah.
didn't know anything about real estate, right?
Right.
So it was just kind of a little passion project of mine to educate and, get some knowledge out there and just help some sellers and buyers. And, as you know, it's just the media with, is the housing market crashing, or,
Right.
no one's ever going to be able to afford a home, like, that kind of stuff. So I was just kind of like wanted to, I guess, spread some, like, in my opinion, correct information. Right. That's obviously a loaded statement because
Yeah.
depending on where you sit, it's,
Right.
But yeah, so those are kind of three things why we started. Yeah, and it's been good. Been releasing one episode every week, pretty much. They were a little long on the beginning, but you learn and adjust. I really try to keep it like under 30 minutes now. Unfortunately, I'm not, or we're not Andrew Huberman or Joe
Right.
Rogan yet. I mean, it's funny because before I jumped on here, Andrew Huberman uploaded a new podcast, and it was like 4 hours and 20 minutes.
Like, why?
And I like the guy. Like, don't
Right.
like I listen to a lot of them like on 2 speed or 1.5 speed, but it's like,
yeah.
I mean, that's like longer than an Oscar nominated like movie. Like, I mean, The Godfather is like 3 hours long, right? And so yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. And well, it's interesting, some of the reasons why you mentioned wanting to launch the podcast, because I just did an episode with a guy who he helps launch small business owners podcasts, and his 3 reasons really, I mean, networking is one of the biggest ones, that kind of lead generation. And then also it just helps your content creation too, because we all know, like, you have to be on social media as an agent now. Like, people are going to look you up on Instagram and on those things. And having the podcast allows you to, you record the one interview, and then you can cut it up and make all these different things to where you can start filling your social media accounts with like really good, valuable information, that people are interested in listening to.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I guess I was spot on with my reasons without even.
Well, and so as you've been doing this, how have you seen maybe your social media profiles grow, or even, getting leads from that just by simply, posting valuable content, and not necessarily that, hey, come list with me type stuff?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, great question. Because I'm actually going through that maturity period, if you want to call it, or that evolution of like my social media content and profiles right now. I mean, I must confess, I'm naturally, I'm not a social media guy. I mean, before I started my own thing here in general, I mean, I had an Instagram account, but like I didn't even have the app on my phone. I didn't have a Facebook account. I didn't miss it. I didn't have a TikTok. Like, you get the point, right? But so in the beginning, but then I obviously, kind of what you were saying, you have to be online, right? I mean, there's just no way around it. And then in the beginning, it was very basic, just listed, just sold, the occasional like testimonial, just because, as you know, like everything just, takes so long when you're doing everything for the first time. It just takes like a long time, because I'm kind of a perfectionist and I like to do things myself. And like if I were ever to outsource something, like I feel like it's important that how it works, right? So you can hold people accountable, or like, things like that. So I was doing a lot of things myself, and like I mentioned, it just takes so long when you're doing things for the first time. So in the beginning, very generic, and then beginning of this year, so for about a couple of weeks now, I partnered up with a digital social media marketing company locally, with a person I went to high school with, and that's really helped because I feel like now it's really elevated my social media content. I mean, we do a lot of video now. Like, I meet with them, we film like video, and they kind of edit it and make it look nice, make it look professional, things like that, which I'm super grateful for. And that's really elevated it. And really, I've seen I've really seen that engagement and conversion go up after that, like more views, more followers, things like that. And yeah, so it's, I do see the value in it, and, but it's obviously baby steps and baby growth. I mean, nobody has, a million followers overnight. So, but I'm always trying to, increase the value to people. Right. And, the lady that I mentioned that I had on my podcast last week, I mean, she was really said an eye-opening thing. Like, I mean, people don't really, there's so much stuff out there. Like, people don't really care about like a just listed post, right? I mean, use that as like a place filler, right? I mean, that's really not something that's like really going to engage an audience, right? And so I've been trying to really just lead with value, right? Like, have a mindset of like, provide value to people. I mean, similar to what you're doing with the podcast, or what I'm doing with the podcast, or with posts or things like that, where like you're providing value to people or that are searching for answers in the real estate sphere, right? And you're that person with the answers, and you're not charging for it, right? You're just leading with value, and then the leads will come, kind of thing. So I guess that's kind of how I've looked at it, and that's kind of how it's evolved. And obviously, I'm not at the end of the road yet, so I'm sure it'll evolve again in the next year and 2 and 3 years. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And obviously, I mean, one thing when you start your own business, it's, I mean, well, not when you started. I mean, any business, right? You're always capital constrained, right? So you're not going to invest $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 like on day one when you open your doors, right? I mean, it's something that has to build up and things like that. So that's kind of where I'm at with social media right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what I think. That's what I really love about the idea of podcasting is that, you don't have to spend a ton of money to really fill up your whatever content wing it is. But, if you're doing blogs, you can turn your episodes into blogs very easily.
Yeah.
You cut little clips out of them and for your social media profiles, and you can do it on a really, pretty constrained budget.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are sharing so much value and really building yourself up as that market authority.
Yeah. 100%. And podcasting is a great way. I mean, it seems like, everybody in various different industry does it now. So there's obviously something that works with it. And, where I really see the value with podcasting, kind of what I was getting at earlier, like the odds of someone watching me talk to someone for 60 minutes at this stage, probably pretty low, to be honest. But where the value comes in is, doing the little snippets, right? Like, I asked someone a question and they answered in 60 seconds, and we just, use that and then post that on YouTube and Instagram, and like, just, that's where I see like the real value for now, right? Until we become Joe Rogan and interview him.
Right. Well, but at the same time, if you're doing those interviews with the different lenders in your area, or, even maybe, local staging company, whoever it is, you're building those referral pipelines and those referral relationships that over time, those definitely start to grow as well.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I love the fact that you are, doing the podcast for all those different reasons. It's not just to, because I talk to so many people, and, people get frustrated when they do content creation. They think, oh, it's got to be bringing me all these leads. And they realize it's a long game. Like,
sure.
And so I love the fact that networking was the first thing you said.
Yeah. I mean, I just think I'm realistic. Not with everything, but with that kind of stuff, I feel like if you go into it with, I have to have a closing from this in the first 60 days, you're just going into it with the wrong mindset. Because like you said, it's a long-term game, right? And Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me, before we wrap up, what are some of your goals, for this second year? On your own, and where you really want to see yourself at the end of this year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's always production and volume goals, and that, looks different for everybody. I think generally speaking, the number, the absolute numbers are probably less important, because if you're a new agent, your production goals are going to look different than mine, and my production goals look different than someone that's been doing this for 20 years and has a team of 5 people, right? I think it's more important to consider growth, right? Like smart, attainable goals as far as like always growing, because I think that's like what kind of makes a successful business. Um, and so there's obviously those goals where it's production and units and volume and things like that. But beyond that, I mean, I'm a big goal setter. So I mean, I do every year in the beginning, like either end of December or beginning of January, somewhere in that time frame. I sit down and I do 1 year goals, 3 year goals, and someday goals, and I do them business and personal, right? Because it kind of goes hand in hand, right? I mean, you're successful in your business, you're going to be able to check off your personal goals. So I'm actually big on goal setting, so it's a question that I like. And for this year, I think, to sum it up, my goal is really to get more consistent with non closings and non leads, or leads and closings from people that I don't know, right? Where it's like, I'm not relying on friends and family referrals. I'm not relying on sphere of influence. I'm not relying on past customers,
Yeah.
right? Like those will still be there, which I know, right? I mean, it's a numbers game, right? You have a
Right.
certain amount of people in your database. You've done a certain amount of deals. Like there's data where every couple of years that database churns, right? So I know that'll be there, but my goal is to find my groove and my rhythm with like more traditional lead gen, right? Whether it be Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google ads, social media marketing, right? People messaging me, like that is really my growth and my goal for this year, as far as like just getting more consistent with lead gen from like random strangers, right?
Right.
And obviously,
Yeah.
if you get a referral from a friend, I understand like that's a stranger in a way too. But I think
Right.
you know what I'm trying to say, where it's just like
Yeah.
someone goes on my website and fills out a form, right?
Yeah.
I get more consistent, predictable with that, because like I said, it's a numbers game. I mean, you get 50 leads a month, X amount puts in their wrong number, X amount never talks to you, X amount you make an appointment, X amount qualifies, X amount closes, right? So that I'm trying to get that system going, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like, having that goal, like not necessarily the amount of closings, or whatever, but the amount of people that you're adding to that database,
Yeah.
because that's where that's where those closings come from.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, obviously I have a unit goal and a volume goal, like, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like where a lot of people go wrong is there needs to be more than that. Like, how do you get there, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, what I'm trying to say is, we're like, I mean, how does $10 million in volume, like, how does that look like? Where does
Right.
that come from? I mean, there's one thing of writing it down. I mean, it's a good start, but like, I mean, I don't know how big into goal setting you are, but like, 10 million, and then like just break it down, right? Like break it down into where is that coming from, and then that goal breaks down into like a monthly goal. I don't really go crazy with the weekly goals. Like, I know some people, it's like, I got to make this many calls a week, this many calls a day, this many calls an hour, this many calls a
Right.
minute. Like, I don't, my bite size is the month, right?
Right.
Like, talk to XYZ people about real estate this month, right? But just really break it down. And I mean, there's a good book I can maybe recommend. It's a super easy read. I mean, most people fly through it. It's, The Goal Book by Brian Tracy. Talks about SMART goals. What are SMART goals? Which SMART stands for, something, but I won't spoil the book, and, things like that, the power of goal setting, like all that. So,
Yeah.
hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before I let you go, let us know, where can people find your podcast and find you online?
Yeah, 100%. So social media, I prefer Instagram. I think that's where I have the best content. I'm on all platforms, but I think my Instagram has like the best content when it comes to videos and knowledge. And it's Kevin Tremmel _real estate. And then the podcast, we're on all the big sites: Apple, Spotify, YouTube. YouTube would be 239 Real Estate Roundtable, and that's the same for YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. So, yep, 239 Real Estate Roundtable and Kevin_Real Estate.
Awesome. Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Awesome, Michael. I appreciate it too, and thanks for the opportunity.
I want to thank Kevin for joining us today and really enjoyed our conversation. I think it's awesome he's using podcasting as a way to network with industry professionals and create a steady stream of social content. Remember to check out the episode description for links to his social media channels and podcast 239 Real Estate Roundtable. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.